Good morning, everyone. This is Jeff Dotzler with Alevity. Thanks again for joining us. Welcome to our second coffee break in this series that we're focused on Microsoft Teams. This has been probably our most popular topic throughout the coffee break series, which is why we felt like it was just important that we really dive in and dig in and do a little more show and tell than just conversation. So we're excited to do that. We had great attendance and great questions last week, and I expect we will have the same today. So as a reminder, before we get started, we have plenty to talk about. We can talk about this for hours, and we honestly struggle with getting the most relevant things fit into 25 minutes. But while we can do that, we'd really like to be able to answer your questions. So please use the Q&A section of Zoom. That little Q&A icon in the Zoom control panel allows you to ask questions. Those pop up for us. We can try to fit those questions in as we go through the topics that we want to cover. And if we can't get to them, we'll follow up with you to try to get a direct answer for you as well. So I would like to welcome Josh Moore, who is joining me this morning, pre-sales solutions architect with Alevity. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you doing today?
Great, thanks. Thanks again for joining us. We had you on probably a month ago on a security topic. So excited to have you share with us some more of the how to set it up and what to think through and what to prepare for as your organization or as our clients' organizations start to use Teams more often. As I mentioned last week, Teams I think was kind of a quiet rollout for Microsoft, but one that Microsoft has been super excited about. And I think the deployment of Teams started to get some foothold, but wasn't necessarily universal until March rolled around. March 15th, March 20th, everybody kind of had to, everybody had to retreat to home and start figuring out how to do remote work. And organizations realized they have this tool available through the licensing that they're already paying for to help them with that, and things really exploded. Maybe you could share a little bit with some of the experience that you've had helping our clients over the last 7 months to kind of start the conversation here.
Yeah, of course. And, rewinding a little bit, 2019, I think it was Teams was the fastest growing app. But, as you mentioned back in March when COVID, really sent a lot of us home working remotely, giving users those tools really became a priority for organizations. And really stepped on the gas for Microsoft to be able to dump in, a lot of research and development dollars, adding new features and functionality. And what I've seen with a lot of our customers across the organization is they really want to use Teams as a destination for their users. So they're thinking a lot about, how do I structure it? How do I secure the data? How do I improve that user experience so we can really enable cloud collaboration and things like that. So it's been a very exciting last 7 months as we've been helping our customers utilize the tool to its fullest extent.
Yeah, so we are going to talk about and focus on kind of what to be thinking about and some of the setup conversations and thought process that people need to have. What would you say are some of the most common questions that you get as it relates to Teams? Maybe now they've even been using it and they realize they've got to make some adjustments to have it work better for them.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to share my screen. We definitely want to make it kind of an interactive demo where I can show some of the tools. But what I hear from most individuals, hold on, let me stop sharing, share screen too, is that, they want to start to leverage Teams. They're already using it for chat, for meetings and things like that. But really the file storage, those social aspects and collaboration, they want to be able to have a foundation that really enables this to be a destination for those users.
Okay,
so
great.
Yep. So Jeff, if you can see my screen, this is a demonstration tenant. Within here, you can see we're on the Teams application. In the Teams section, And what you have underneath here is, that the top level organization unit is called the team. And then underneath here, you have the various channels. So really, anybody that's looking to be successful in a team's rollout is thinking about how can they organize this to make sure that, ongoing throughout the life cycle of teams utilization, that it's, not something that becomes unwieldy to manage. So that's what we hear a lot.
Okay, good. So where would someone start? How do we get going on this conversation?
Yeah, so first of all, it's going to depend on the business, right? Some smaller organizations, they, working tightly together, they can kind of casually manage the creation of teams. And, in this example, it's a demo tenant. If you want to create a new team, you can come down here to the very bottom, join or create a team. You can create that new team. You can do it from a group that's already established, or you can do it from, just establishing it from the ground up. You can make it public so that everybody in the organization can see it. And then also org-wide, which is by default, it adds everybody so it's visible within their team. Or you can make it private and you can add only individuals that you want to add. And so once you're in here.
Yeah, and while your fingers are flying, I think one of the things that's interesting is that the organization has the ability to control who can create a team and who can't, right? It could be a certain maybe executive level or leader of business units, or
Yep.
maybe just the IT group, or you can have it be wide open. That's like you said earlier, that's kind of an organizational level choice that each business or organization will have to make.
Yeah, and thank you for going there. Definitely a lot of organizations would rather establish some level of governance, right? Where business units, people, employees within those business units, you don't just want to give everybody the ability to be able to create teams, because you could see, duplication of those organizational units. What you can do, it's not a setting within the team's admin. It's more a PowerShell script, but you can edit those users that have the capabilities to be able to join or create teams. And then what you would set up is an internal process to be able to have people escalate that to your IT department. So there's some level of, approval before teams get created. But once you've created that team, and you'll see here, I'm hovering over Contoso, you can go in that, manage team, and anybody that's an owner of that team can create sub-channels. So you can make it so that you have people that are responsible in that team, that business unit, that functional group, be able to come in here and add various channels to build out what you want to have within that functional group. So that is something that organizations are doing. And then, while we're in here and we're looking at this, not only do you have the owners that can create that subgroup, add various members. So if they want to add new team members, they can do that, taking that out of IT hands and pushing it out to the functional groups for speed of implementation. But you can also do things where you can make new channels by adding a channel. You'll see across the entire Office 365 platform, the ellipsis, great way to see new options, by the way. When you come in here, you can add a new channel. You can select it to be private. That means that this channel that you are creating will only have those users that you specify be able to have access to it. And you'll see that has a lock on it. So, it might be, so you have an accounting team and there's a special project where you need to better secure that data. Microsoft makes it at that channel level that you can make it private. And, I don't know what was covered last week, but the value of these channels is there's a lot of social aspects, where fun stuff for announcements, you can make it so that you're making this a destination where kind of engaging your employees to come to this tool. You can also, like underneath this Mark 8 project team, there's a set of files underneath there. So that's cloud accessible, any device that you have. And by hitting this sync button on Mark 8 project team design, that'll integrate it right into File Explorer, and kind of helps with people managing through change. They're used to going out, they're used to using File Explorer. It's a good little integration point where it's accessing those documents in the cloud. And then, some of the other common things that we hear from our customers as we're helping them adopt Teams is related to security, right? Since COVID hit, a lot of people are, trying to enable, cloud file storage utilizing Teams. And obviously there's a lot of confidential information that the organization doesn't want to have fall into the wrong hands. Now, Office 365 and your entitlements, you are entitled to be able to set up Office MFA to be able to protect those files. So that's multi-factor authentication. And you do that, I'll just jump over into the admin screens. So we'll jump back. So you can go in, log into Office 365 with that administrative account. You click the waffle button, go to admin. Underneath users, you can select active users. Just by selecting any user, you see that user profile here. In this case, it's Adele Vance. Manage multi-factor authentication. And this will bring you into the multi-factor authentication screen where you can select individual users that you want to have MFA on, and you can enable those users so that when they're first signing on to Teams through a web app, through a phone, through their Windows 10 and applications on their desktop, they'll be able to go through a enrollment process to validate who they are and how they want to get that multi-factor authentication. So that's a good way to secure that content.
So Josh, it looks like that is for Teams, right? For the MFA authentication in order to download it, to set up your profile and to get into it. And then you have the option to do something similar kind of by file or by some of the sets of information as well.
Yeah, so this is that user, and this is accessing any of that Office 365 content. So whether they're using Outlook, OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint, this MFA configuration would impact all of that.
Okay. Yeah, because I asked because one of the questions that came up from last week, which was, obviously more user-based, but
Yep.
was that they want to roll Teams out, but their CEO is concerned about security of protecting some of that confidential information, whether they're going to have financials be available, whether it's discussions about acquisitions or R&D projects or anything that's going on. So what's some advice to think about to secure that specific information if they have decided that Teams is a good tool to use organizationally?
Yeah, and obviously multi-factor authentication is going to help ensure that those users that you've given permissions to the individual teams and channels, that you're validating that, right? In case somebody has really guessable credentials, or maybe they were phished and gave away their credentials. But then at the team level as well, when you're adding either owners, members, or guests, you just got to be cognizant of who you're adding. So you're giving these people access to the teams and channels, and want to make sure that you're only extending that to the employees that should consume that information. So it's very similar to, managing permissions for a file share that's on premise. So if they're comfortable where they are within their four walls, and the permissions that were set up with an on-prem file system, and you're migrating to the cloud, you should have that same level of confidence that you're assigning, Active Directory user accounts to channels that have files that are associated with that user group that needs access to it. And then, within Teams and the Office 365 experience, there's also tools like Azure Information Protection and data loss prevention. These tools will allow the system to be able to scan for, personally identifiable information, like social security numbers, credit cards, and a variety of other things that you can program in. And Azure Information Protection allows you to tag documents. So maybe you're a Department of Defense contractor and you want to be able to identify, confidential, unclassified information. You can tag those documents to be able to ensure those are audited throughout the Office 365. A little bit of uptick in licensing because you're going to need enterprise mobility and security, but for each individual organization, kind of working through what are their security concerns and how can we address those within the system. Microsoft supports, I believe it's over 150 different security organization certifications, and as far as R&D, they're one of the organizations that invests the most amount of money on a yearly basis, purely on security and improving their product for it.
While we're on that, a question just came in, by the way, as a reminder. Please feel free to post your questions, and thank you for this one. As we were talking about MFA, the question is, why not use MFA on all data as an auto setting?
You can globally enable MFA across the entire Office 365 setup. I would just be cautious as far as if you're a larger organization that you're not dropping the bombshell. Select a smaller level of users, test them out, see how that registration process works for them, and then move forward and roll it out more organizationally. At the file level, you're accessing Teams and the Office 365 products. So it's not working at a file level, it is working at an application level. Probably done from the standpoint of trying to secure that information, but not making it so that user experience is poor, where every file you access, you have to be prompted for an MFA. I think most organizations try to, have MFA prompt them. Maybe they have a corporate office where they have that corporate office whitelisted, so that people aren't constantly getting hit with MFA. But they, at a file level, if you're, a worker, that user experience might be terrible if you're getting prompted every time you go into a file. That's what I surmise Microsoft is trying to do. Good question, though. Thank you for that.
All right, good.
Yeah. All right. Other things that you can, see within the user interface, there is the ability to be able to see all the different, by hitting this icon down here, where you can kind of see at a glance, what are those different team names, what are the types of teams that they are, how many people are in there. So just kind of a nice way to get a quick glance of all the various teams and their current configuration. So. All right. And then you can also, so within Teams, I wanted to go back to the Teams admin to show a little bit more in there. So again, the waffle button, admin, that'll bring you to the default Office 365, and then you can come down here to the various admin centers. And then you can select Teams. There is a way as well, and I like to touch on this. So most organizations that are concerned about data security want to make sure that they're partnering with other companies that have Office 365 in the right way. So one of the things that concern companies is, hey, I've got a company that I partner with that I want them to be able to be guests within my Office 365 environment. And, just to demonstrate that, so underneath this Mark a project team, if I wanted to add a member, I could do that, and I could add and it might not allow it because it's an external. But in your environment, you can add external guests to participate in Teams, which means they can sign up for notifications when new posts are happening, when files are updated. And inside of Alevity, we have a project management team. And for those companies that we partner with, we open up Teams on a domain basis. So you have three options. Let me get to that screen in the admin. So under org-wide settings and external access, you have this screen up at the top where you can have it where users can communicate with people outside of the organization. It's either on this screen all on or all off. And if it's off, you won't be able to chat with people outside of your organization. You won't be able to invite guests to participate within Teams. But what you can do is you can leave this on, which allows everybody, and you can either do it where you're adding specific domains as allowed. And then because it's allowing Levity, it's assuming that all other organizations that you're going to be blocking. Whereas if you added a block in here, it would assume that you're going to allow all organizations except the ones that you blocked within here. Underneath the org-wide settings, you can also go into guest access. By default, it's turned off. And if you turn this on, there's a number of configuration items that you can go through based off of what guests can do once they're a member inside your Teams channel. So, can you allow them to use video? Can you extend it to them where they can do a meet now? That would be with people inside of your organization. Can they allow screen sharing? What are their messaging capabilities? So a lot of that is configurable within this Teams admin setting. So. Yeah, so that's a little tour of the Teams admin and some of the considerations that are pretty popular with our clients that are coming on board today.
Yeah, good stuff. And there is a mountain of information that we could go through. Thanks for kind of picking some of the things that I think are probably most pertinent and relevant. Last chance to ask a question if you would like. But one that came in that I think is interesting is that guest access option that you were just walking through. I think that there's a kind of a superpower associated with Teams to extend that level of collaboration and communication to vendors, customers, partners that you work with regularly. I think of like a contractor or a construction organization that has a ton of subs that they work with regularly. They're kind of extensions of their company, and they could communicate potentially very well and easily through Teams. How often do you see organizations turn that on? Is guest access and guest collaboration something that is frequent, or are most organizations kind of still a little concerned about kind of opening up the network, if you will, and I'm using air quotes, you just can't see it, but kind of opening up their internal tools to external partners?
Yeah, and I think with most organizations I speak with and I consult on Teams adoption, this guest access is a feature that is very important to them, because you can use Teams, you establish that team and channel setup to be able to facilitate, file sharing, announcements. It stops you from having to email documents back and forth because they're stored in a single repository. And then instead of emailing even back and forth related to issues that you're dealing with on that project, you can post inside of that Teams channel, so that everybody that's accessing either a guest or an internal user can see that historically, as well as some of the power associated with, maybe you have, in your contractor example, maybe you have a Monday meeting where all of those guests are on a conference call, and you can record that meeting and direct that recording directly to that channel. So you're keeping all of that information for that business partner or those business partners in a single area where they can consume at a later date, right? In case somebody was on vacation, deer hunting, whatever, they can access that content at a later date, but still have it be protected in your Teams environment.
And another great thing to know is that Teams supports multiple languages, as Lee Gu showed right there.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, great stuff. Thank you for sharing that. Just wanted to, as a kind of a public service announcement here, let everybody know about some of our upcoming content. Next week, we are our pre-Thanksgiving final coffee break session. Sorry, I'm finished sharing my screen here. Will be about Teams live events, which is a great, I would say, evolving capability from Teams, one that provides a ton of value and capability to do larger events within your organization if you do like all company meetings or even external meetings potentially. Here a little oxymoron, I don't even know if that's the right word, but we're going to be talking about Teams live events through a Zoom call. There are some capabilities within Zoom that for webinars and registration requirements and things like that are still valuable, but some pretty cool things that you can do with Teams live events. Again, that's for most people, depending on their licensing, it's a free option or one that's included in their licensing, and it may allow them to save some money with some of the webinar tools that they may be using today or large group meeting events. So we'll be covering that next Friday. Paul Hager, our Director of Solutions, will be walking us through some of the cool capabilities with Team Live events. So if you haven't registered for that, please do so. Again, thank you very much for participating. Josh, thanks for all the great content. If we can help with anything specifically, please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone on your account management team, and we can get you connected with the right resources. If you're not an Alevity client, we'd love to be able to help you. So reach out to me or any of us here at Alevity, and we can do some introductions and find out what solutions might be best for you. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we look to talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jeff. Have a great day.